Here we go. Well, I'm going to Disney World, and that's what I'm jacked up about. It's gonna be fantastic.
It just seems like too many people.
Not when they're at 30% capacity right now. All right, good morning. Let's go over a couple things. One thing that was brought to my attention, actually multiple people asking and talking about it. And so um, let's go ahead and talk about Honors Project 3 and making sure that you are doing MLA format, but not just for Honors Project 3, but also working on your paper for your spring STEAM project. It also needs to be done in MLA format. So what I recommend, because it will save you a lot of time, is using citationmachine.net and then plugging in everything, clicking MLA format, and then clicking, I'm sure most everybody's source is going to be a website, unless you're using a book or something else. Clicking on website, you put in as much information as the website gives you. Now, here's the thing, and don't let it freak you out. Like, there's a lot of things it'll ask you for, but if that information is not on the website, it is okay to leave it blank. If it does not get or give the date that it was created or posted, if it does not give specifics about the author, so I'm just throwing out stuff. So if there's any piece of information that the website does not give you, it is okay to leave that blank. You might have some websites to where you don't have but just the web address and the title of the article and just a few other things. So if there's anything the website does not give you, it is okay to leave that part blank when inserting that information. And then once you get everything that it does give you in and you click, I don't even know what it says, but whatever the button that says to put together your source, click it, and then just copy and paste what it gives you for your MLA formatted source to put on your Works Cited page. Yeah. So hopefully that helps. Again, I've had a couple of questions pop up about that. So anyway, that's an easy, fast solution to be able to make sure that you've got that taken care of. Several of you have already done a phenomenal job of staying on top of that anyway, but just throwing that out there. So let's go ahead and get into it for today. Here's what I've got for you. We're going to wrap up really quick talking about the Holocaust. We will get into how the U.S. is doing first on the home front, and then how the U.S. gets involved in World War II, which is about where we're going to stop. And then we'll finish talking about the actual fighting and everything once we come back from spring break. We will be on Section 3 in your IDs and SQs. We'll go through and talk about what we did yesterday with the Holocaust. And then we'll do Section 3 in your packet, as well as a review sheet, and then give you time to work on the appetizer portion and hopefully get into the main course of your World War II learning menu. And I was going to bring up my Google Classroom for how I spaced all those pieces out, because I don't remember without looking. All right, so for your learning menu, it's not due until after, I think that's the end of the week that we come back from spring break. So what I would highly suggest is getting the appetizer done and at least starting the main course, which is very similar to what we did with World War I. You pick a topic to do a PowerPoint slide on. That's pretty much, you're doing the same thing. To mix it up, I would choose a different topic. If you focused on, I don't know, if you focused on airplanes for World War I, then maybe for World War II, you want to focus on a person or a battle or the Holocaust or something else. That's just a suggestion. But I'll make sure that I give you time to work on your learning menu, as well as do some research for STEAM projects. But before I get too far into it, and before I share my screen to wrap up on a few things with notes, does anybody else have questions, comments, or concerns? Let me check my reminders. The only other thing that I wanted to say is just make sure that you're paying attention to upcoming due dates, and that I'm not putting anything that is World War II on second 6 weeks. World War II will go on your last and final 6 weeks. I've got 4 grades left to put in for you guys. I've got to put in chapter 18 and chapter 19 and your 18-19 test. So those are your last few grades. My goal is to have it in by Friday. And that's where second 6 weeks will stop once we come back from spring break. I think technically once we get back from spring break, like third 6 weeks doesn't start until like that Tuesday or Wednesday or something weird. But anyway, we're about to be there. Keep in mind that if you don't want to have to take my fantastic trivia of a final exam, you do have to have an A or B as your overall, your F1 overall. Anybody with CD or failing does have to take the final exam. I think that's it. And if there's no questions or anything, we will go ahead and jump into it. And if you want to follow along in your note packet or Google Slides, feel free to do so. All right. Wow, I didn't mean to do that. Click the wrong thing. All right. So I just want to talk about a few things before we move on to everything else today. All right, so we talked about the Holocaust. We talked about Hitler pushing through the final solution, the idea that we are doing mass exterminations of undesirables across Europe. Let's see, I'm trying to think of where I stopped. All right, we'll just flip through a couple of pictures really quick. And this just talks about one of the things that was going on the inside were a lot of experimental, a lot of experiments. This picture is showing an experiment being done on a man. And there was sometimes there's a reason for why they do certain experiments. One of the reasons for this one is because they're trying to see how little oxygen your body and brain can still function off of, because when pilots go so high in the air, they have to have those oxygen masks and everything. So this is an experiment to see, and I don't mean to laugh because it's funny, it's horrible, but this is an experiment to see how little oxygen he can still function off of before his brain and body start to fail. So that's what you see there. We know that there were concentration camps again in Germany, Austria, Poland, Czechoslovakia. They're being forced into cattle cars and transported from ghettos in different neighborhoods. They're living in these barrack bunks. They're crowded in. Usually, you can see this. It's got four grown men shoved into a single barrack. They're limited on food and water. And if you didn't die from starvation or dehydration, then exhaustion, or just being put in mass executions in gas chambers. So we know, and these numbers are crazy, we know that towards the end of the war, and I am going to focus on Auschwitz in particular, that Auschwitz in Poland was gassing 12,000 people a day. And that's just a guess. That's a guess. Like, we're estimating somewhere around 1.6 million are going to die at Auschwitz alone. That's not even including all the other ones. And again, the estimate that we have total is somewhere around 6 million people that were killed during the Holocaust. And again, we don't have accurate records. I shared this yesterday. That Holocaust survivor that I was listening to her story, she was talking about how she actually sat down, and I can't imagine the self-restraint because I would have wanted to choke them out. But she actually sat down with a German doctor that explained that when he was at the gas chambers and they checked to make sure everybody in the room was dead before they came in and officially declared everyone dead, that he only did one death certificate for the whole entire room of people. Like I said, this classroom would be the size of one of the gas chambers, and they were just stuffing as many, anywhere from 50 or more people into a single room. And he would sign one death certificate for everybody in that room. And so our numbers are probably way off. And that, like I said, that's just an estimate. You know, we have mass graves that we can count bodies in, but there's no way to go back and those are bones from the crematory that are all stacked up. You know, there's no way for us to go back and accurately count all the bodies that were burned. So again, we're just guessing. And this is just an example of them pulling out bodies from the gas chambers. They've completely stripped, they've taken their shoes, their clothes. We know that when they were coming into the camps, they would have their head shaved. They would take away all their belongings, and even something as crazy as checking to see if they had gold fillings, because that's what they used back in the day to fix a tooth, was to put a gold filling on top of it. And they had somebody there with a pair of like pliers, and they would check your mouth. And if you had any gold fillings, they're pulling those gold fillings out. I mean, completely dehumanizing them, stripping them down of anything. And then all these bodies are about to be put into a mass grave. So it's just the horribleness of all this. So again, we are estimating somewhere around 6 million that were killed during the Holocaust. We do know that some people survived and were liberated by the Allies. This picture and one of the more famous pictures, and I can't find where I put my book at. One of the more famous pictures was actually a concentration camp. I know what it was. Auschwitz in Poland was liberated by Russian soldiers, and they have pictures of them being liberated at the camp. So, you know, we have a lot of famous stories. We know the Anne Frank story, Elie Wiesel, who wrote the book Night, Schindler, the movie Schindler's List, the book. And again, I hope I'm saying her name right. Eva, I think is the name of the twin that I've read the book on from the twin studies. It is just amazing that she and her sister both survived the twin studies and Dr. Mendengold's experiments. It is crazy. Okay, all right, we're gonna have to switch gears. I can tell you like so many stories, and especially her stories are just incredible. But we are gonna have to switch gears. I do need to at least get us going in the direction of the US's entry into the war, and then we'll move on to Section 3 stuff. Get ready to finish up the packet and the IDs and project work time. So I won't spend but a few minutes going over all this. All right, the U.S. prepares for war. We have what we call the cash and carry policy. Is an easy way for us to still stay neutral, because the Axis powers, which are Germany and Italy in Europe, the Axis powers say that if you are selling and you're helping anybody during the war, obviously that's not them, then you're not considered to be neutral. So we have what we call the cash and carry policy, which is we will make it, and anybody, we have to offer it across the board, Axis powers and allies. Anybody who wants to come over here, pay for it, and pick it up, then we will sell wartime materials. Obviously, Germany and Italy are not going to take us up on that offer, but that's how we kind of work around saying that we're still neutral during the beginning of the war. We're going to start the selective service back up, which is just the draft. Roosevelt, let me see if you remember this fun fact. Roosevelt in 1940 runs for his third term in office. Do you remember how many times total he is actually elected? It is 4. Fantastic. Yes. So he's going to be elected for his third term in office. And a lot of this is for very obvious reasons. A lot of times, several times throughout history, actually, we don't really like the idea of changing leadership right when the stuff is about to hit the fan, so to speak. So that, and he is an actually fantastic president. Then we also pushed through the Lend-Lease policy, which is again supplying our allies, and we established the Atlantic Charter with us and Great Britain. All right, last couple of things, and we're going to get ready to hit the pause button. I might like briefly talk about the start of what happens at Pearl Harbor tomorrow, but we'll see. All right, so as the fighting goes on, there is a situation. You know how the other day we talked about how France fell and surrendered June of 1940, and like how easily the Germans were able to take over one of our allies. The whole world like draws in a deep breath thinking that all hell is about to break loose because the Germans almost took over another ally. And this time it was the Soviet Union. So June of 1941, the Eastern Front with the Germans, they attack Russia. And you know what? Here's what's interesting. You know what saves Russia from not being completely overrun by the Germans? Weather. The weather. Yeah. So Russia has like horribly awful winters. And when I say awful winters, I mean like 12 feet of snow. You know what I'm saying? Like bad winters. Now the people there obviously are used to it, you know, but the Germans were not used to it. So when the Germans were advancing on Moscow, what is Moscow to Russia? The capital. Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like when you play these games, you get the capital and it's, you know, game over, you win, right? So they're advancing on Moscow, they're advancing on the capital. This winter is just throwing down tons and tons of snow. It's cold. The Germans are not equipped for it. However, the Germans make it all the way to the gates of Moscow. That's how close this thing goes down. And they are able, and when I say they, I mean the Russians are able to hold them off, stop them. Again, this horrible bad winter ends up stopping the Germans very much in their tracks. And the Germans actually start to retreat. They're low on supplies. Again, they're not used to these harsh weather conditions. And that is what will save them from taking down another ally. All right, so I am going to briefly talk about it and then we'll come back to the rest of it tomorrow. All righty, this is it. This is it. And this is really heart-wrenching. You know, this is one of these situations to where had we been paying attention, had we been looking at all the details, all the puzzle pieces, there's always the what if of could we have prevented what happened at Pearl Harbor? And yeah, we were sitting ducks. We were perfectly lined up. Our battleships were in a nice, neat little row. We had submarines in a nice, neat little row. I mean, it was a perfect setup for anybody to come and attack. All right, now, during World War II, every country has their own like coding machine with secret messages, and that's how they would pass different messages. Well, there was a Japanese embassy in Washington, D.C., as well as a German embassy. And we had our own decoders. And it's kind of like whoever figures out the code faster is going to be the one that's on top of it, right? We could not decipher the Japanese messages fast enough to be able to figure out where. We did figure out the fact, and one of the more famous quotes is that an attack on the U.S. is imminent, that is going to happen. But now we have to figure out where. Where is it going to happen? We assumed that if the Japanese hit us, they were going to hit us on the mainland. What do I mean by that? Yeah, somewhere within, you know, the 48 states. And we assumed that they would hit us on the West Coast, California. That's where we thought if they hit us, that's where they're going to hit us. We did not think that it would be Hawaii. However, Hawaii does have a very large Japanese immigrant population. And we figure out later that immigrants have been passing information over to other Japanese, sending pictures They'd been sending pictures, and that's how they knew that our battleship row was all nice and neat and lined up. That's where they knew where everything was. They were sending intel and they were sending pictures. So anyway, we don't figure it out in time. They are going to hit us on the early morning hours. December 7th was a Sunday. December 7th, 1941, the Japanese hit us in the very early morning hours, and the military was using Sundays as a day off. So nobody was up and going in a lot of places. Nobody was in any type of assigned position, if you will. Roosevelt would then come on. The attack lasted a couple hours and then it was over. They actually had multiple waves. The Japanese had multiple waves that were supposed to hit. They actually stopped after the fourth or fifth wave and said, I think we got them. Roosevelt would say, this is a day that will live in infamy. We will never forget it. And until 9/11, Pearl Harbor was the largest attack on the U.S. to that date. And that's before, like I said, the attack on 9/11. So as soon as that happens, for obvious reasons, we are officially into the war. American blood has been shed. The U.S. declares war on Japan in the Pacific, as well as Germany and Italy in Europe. And we are officially into the U.S. But I didn't mean to skip over this. I need to back up. That one of the reasons why Japan is really mad at us is we kind of have this little bit of a superiority complex that we give off to other countries. And we had cut Japan off from some of the goods we sell them, oil, gas, and steel. Again, they're an island nation. They're restricted on the natural resources. Once they invaded China, we said, sorry, we don't do business with countries that invade other countries. We don't do that. They were mad at us. They're going to get revenge and get back at us. But we will do the same. We have a secret mission to get back at them known as the Doolittle Raid. We got about 6 million that volunteer. During World War II, we still have segregated forces. Women are going to volunteer and be in several different parts of the military. Again, minorities are still in segregated units. Another good movie, if you've never seen it, is focusing on the Tuskegee Airmen, which is an all African-American regiment of airmen. I forget, Red Tails is the movie. It's a really good movie. And here's where we start calling our guys GIs. And if anybody ever, like G.I. Joe, the figure, if nobody ever knew what GI stood for, it means government issued, because we see our soldiers as property, government property. We're using them as weapons in the war effort. Okay, all right. I tell you what, let's stop there. Let me stop sharing. Let's stop there. If you don't have it pulled out already, whether you're doing it on paper and pencil or through Google Docs and all that fun stuff. Let's look at section 3 stuff. Let's go through this, make sure you guys don't have any questions, and then hopefully you'll use some time to do some work. All right, so section 3 is mostly what we talked about yesterday with the Holocaust. All right, question 18 says, what early steps did Germany take in persecution of Jewish people? We talked about several examples yesterday. Taking away civil rights, that's one. Taking away civil rights, forcing them to wear the Star of David. Let's put just a couple. There's not really a whole lot of room. Taking away civil rights, making them wear the Star of David. 19 says, why did many Jews stay in Germany despite being persecuted? That was a great question we had yesterday. Carter, give me something. Why did people choose to stay? Oh, we're on question 19. Why did many Jews choose to stay in Germany despite all the bad that was going on? Brooke, how about you give me something? This is going so well. Okay. All right. Luke, can you give me anything?
They didn't have the resources.
Okay. All right. Might not have had the resources, didn't have a visa. Maybe they didn't have the money to be able to do it. Aiden, what's something else we talked about yesterday?
They didn't want to lose their wealth.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people didn't want to give up again, they wouldn't let them leave with more than $5 in their pocket. So giving up a business, giving up their wealth, leaving behind family, friends. Again, just put down a couple of things for number 19. All right, 20. What was the purpose of the WWII conference? This is where Hitler's going to push through his idea of what? Yeah, I remember you commenting about that. All right, let me go with somebody else for this question. Sarah, Sarah. What was the big decision that was made at the WWII conference?
I'm not sure.
Okay, it was the final solution. The final solution was the idea to start pushing the mass executions of Jews and other undesirables. So Hitler's idea of the final solution. All right, 21. How did Hitler try to exterminate Europe's Jewish population? What was the number one choice for mass executions? Alyssa?
I'm gonna go for women and just say gas chambers. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, gas chambers. Good. Gas chambers for 21. We just talked about that this morning, right? We know that Auschwitz was gassing somewhere around 12,000 a day towards the end. And 22, do you think the German people or other nations could have prevented the Holocaust? Why or why not? So this is very much an opinion question. Like, there is some truth to the fact that some people honestly, maybe they chose to be ignorant. They just didn't want to know. So yeah, there is some truth that some people really did not know what was actually going on. Some people did. So what do you think? Do you think the German people or other nations could have prevented what happened with the Holocaust? You say yes. Why do you say yes?
There was so many things like early on that they just ignored.
Okay, yeah, early signs. Yeah, there was a lot of early signs that were pretty obvious that something was going on. People might not have known to what extent. One of the pictures that I looked at yesterday shows whenever the Allied forces came into Germany, they forced citizens to walk by mass graves of executed people so that they could see what exactly had been going on, whether they really knew or not. So 22 is an opinion question. You write what you want for that one. 23, Nuremberg laws restricting Jews' civil rights. Restricting Jews' civil rights. And 24, we talked about yesterday too, the Gestapo, German police. That's the German police. Okay, and we'll hit section 4 on your IDs pretty quickly tomorrow because we've actually talked about, I think all of it, but for time purposes, we're going to scoot on. So grab your packet. Let's do that really fast, and then you guys use some work time. All right, 23, guided reading. 20-3 is fill in the blank, so we'll go through this pretty fast. And then we're going to look at the review on, I think it's the first page of your packet that's got a review on it. All right, here we go, really fast. Section 1 says Nazi persecution of the Jews. A, the Holocaust is also referred to as the Shoah from a Hebrew word, which means mass loss of life. It's a lot to squeeze in a blank. I get that. Mass loss of life. All right, B, in September of 1935, the Nuremberg laws. So if you have your IDs out, you can see how to spell it. Nuremberg laws for B took citizenship from the Jewish Germans and banned marriages between Jews and other Germans. C, the killing of a German diplomat provoked attacks against Jews on the night of November 9th, 1938. Which is now known as Kristallnacht, which we talked about yesterday. Kristallnacht means night of the broken glass. I will spell that. If you're a little rusty on your German, I will spell that for you. Kristallnacht. Kristallnacht. There you go. D. Following that night of violence, the government secret police arrested at least 20,000, that's your answer for D, 20,000 wealthy Jews. E, between 1933 and 1939, some 360,000, that was the number we looked at yesterday. 360,000 Jews, including prominent scientists and business owners, escaped Nazi-controlled Germany. F, one factor that limited Jewish immigration to the U.S. was a Nazi order that prevented Jews from leaving Germany with more than how much? $5. Yeah, $5 for F. G says Jews who had escaped from Germany on the SS St. Louis were denied permission to go ashore, first in Florida, Florida's in your first blank, and later in Cuba. So Florida and Cuba for G. Section 2, the final solution. A, the Nazis planned to move Jews from vast areas of Europe to detention centers known as concentration camps. So concentration camps for A. B, in the detention centers, healthy individuals would work as slave laborers. That's your answer. Slave laborers until they dropped dead of exhaustion, disease, or malnutrition. C, the elderly, the sick, and young children were to be executed in mass what? What do we use? Gas chambers. There you go, gas chambers. D, an estimated how many were executed at Auschwitz? What was my number? 1.6 million. Yep, 1.6 million were executed at Auschwitz, most of them being Jews. E, historians point to a number of factors to explain how the Holocaust could have occurred, including the German people's sense of injury after what? World War I, yes, World War I. I want to throw this out there, and not that it's a huge mistake, but in a lot of y'all's projects, and when you write stuff, when you write World War I and when you write World War II, we use Roman numerals, not literal 1 or an actual 2. Just throwing that out there. We do Roman numerals. So anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there. Okay, all right, let me check out time. Which one? Kristallnacht? All right, Kristallnacht. And the last thing we're going to do together, that first page, it says content vocabulary. That first page in your packet, we're going to do 1 through 7, and you're going to do number 8 on your own, where you have to explain concentration camps and extermination camps, the difference, which one is slave labor and which one is just there to push through the final solution. So let's do that really quick. So it gives you 2 choices, and I realize you can't really see which ones are supposed to be bold, just because I've copied the snot out of this and it looks horrible now. So we're going to do this together, 1 through 7, and then we're moving on to projects. Number 1, Roosevelt developed the idea of a blank. What type of defense zone? Is actually one of your IDs. It's actually the last one on our list of IDs. Hemispheric, yeah. So in number 1, you're going to circle, underline, or highlight hemispheric. Defense zone is what we use to enable the U.S. to patrol the neutral waters of the Atlantic against German submarines. Number 2, Roosevelt supported the idea of which one? Internationalism or isolationism as a national policy to trade. There's your key word.
Internationalism.
Yes, internationalism for number 2. Number 3, Britain and France's policy of accepting Hitler's demands to avoid conflict was known as what? What is that word that we use to try and make them, what? Appeasement. Yeah, I'm trying to make them happy. So appeasement is what you're going to circle for number 3. Number 4, Benito Mussolini founded a political system in Italy known as, which one?
Maybe.
What?
Oh, I'm wondering.
You're looking at number 4, right?
Oh, fascism.
What? Yeah, fascism. I'm sorry. Yeah, fascism for number 4, which gave power to a dictator and called for extreme nationalism. Number 5, under Stalin, family farms in the Soviet Union turned into this, or government-owned farms. Collectives. Collectives for number 5. Yeah, I got a 50-50 shot. Number 6, the Germans use a type of warfare known as what? Blitzkrieg. That's our German that we're using. Blitzkrieg, that use sudden violent attacks. And number 7, in 1940, Congress passed an act that gave Roosevelt the power to restrict the sale of what kind of materials? Strategic materials, which were important for fighting a war. Okay, all right, let me check the chat because I feel like I've missed a lot of stuff. That's as far as we're going today. I do want you to use time to work on projects. I do have a really big question. Have you guys switched to online only and I don't know it? Because Brooke, I haven't seen you. Carter, I haven't seen you. Maylee, haven't seen you. Alyssa, are you guys online only now?
No, I've just gotten busy. I just haven't had time to come in.
Oh, okay, all right. I was just checking the chat. Okay. All righty, just curious. I was trying not to take it personally. Starting to think that it was just me. Yeah, I'm just gonna smile and then cry on the inside about it. It's me and my buddy Gage rocking it out here. Just the two of us. It's not gotten awkward yet, right? Yeah, he's telling me it's not, just to not hurt my feelings. Okay. All right, guys. Does anybody have any questions before I let you go? I would really love to encourage you guys to come tomorrow. I've got a little bit of a surprise. You don't really get it unless you're in person. So if you're able to come, I would love to share a surprise before we get ready to go on spring break. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Spring break. So if you can come in person, little secret, we're about to go. Everybody that wants to be in person is going to go 4 days once we come back from spring break. But I think they're going to give you an ultimatum and they're going to tell you either you come all 4 days or you're virtual the rest of the semester. No flip-flopping back and forth because and that's more for us because I can't take it. It's killing me not knowing. I never know what every day is going to be like. Every day is different. And it's lonely in here. So anyway, all right. If you're good, I'll see you. If not,
I have a question.
Yep.
Sorry. Hold on. I've been working on my project a little bit. So I forgot to put a title page. So I literally just started and had everything out, but can I either use this, which is not an actual page, or should I use the front as my title page?
Either one. Either one. That's really up to you. Yeah, I'm gonna give you flexibility on that. But I will tell you, from what I can see, that looks awesome.
What's with this one?
Oh, it took like 45 minutes to place everything out.
Oh, wow. I love it. It looks really good though. It does.
Thank you. Okay, I didn't know if it had to be like an actual front page or if I could just use like the little thing.
No, that's completely fine. It looks good.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay. All right. Good deal. Have a good one.
You too.